You're listening to Freedom Talk Radio with your host Andy Peacher, live from the UK. Email us freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com or visit us at freedomtalkradioonline.com.
There we go. Good evening, warm welcome. It's Andy, it's Tim, it's 2Ps in a Sunday podcast. Welcome again, Tim. We've had some good weather today in the Orkneys, but it's going to rain next week and snow again in May. How about that?
Yeah, well, you're pretty far up. You're close to the North Pole, so got to expect these weather anomalies. Too bad, though.
What did they do in Shakespeare time when the weather was bad, eh? What would they have done?
They would have gone to bed and pulled the quilts on 5 deep.
Yeah, I think that's what people done when I was young. You know, they didn't necessarily go to bed to sleep, but they went to bed to keep warm, and they put the TV on or they put the old radio on, you know, and just chilled.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about Shakespeare today. Our audience is probably a mix of UK people and North American. I don't know if anyone's tuning in from the Philippines or anywhere else, but yeah, we got an audience that should be interested in, you know, the truth about Shakespeare. To start off with.
Yeah, don't they say that what happened in history sometimes happen in the present and the future? Sometimes.
Yeah, history does tend to repeat in cycles. So there are similarities between our time and the Elizabethan era. There's a lot of, you know, secrecy, and there's a lot of secrets coming out, just as there was then. I mean, yeah, the Queen and her court were very secretive, but at the same time, a lot of the truth was leaking out, and it would make the figures of the court, not least the Queen, pretty nervous. Because if the truth came out, the scandal could end careers and maybe even lead to allegations of treason, and which could then lead to execution. Okay, so there's a scholar, a Baconian scholar named Edward Durning Lawrence, and he made a great contribution to the Baconian cause to link Francis Bacon to the Shakespeare plays. Now, most Baconians jump on this kind of evidence and say, see, we told you Shakespeare was Francis Bacon. Well, not so quick. Yes, he had a considerable influence on the plays, but sole author? No, I take strong exception to that. No. Bacon didn't even fully write Bacon. There's evidence that's been found that Thomas Hobbes, one of his secretaries, shows that the study shows that one of Bacon's scholarly books shows the style of Thomas Hobbes popping up in several passages from the book. So did Bacon exclusively write that book? It doesn't look like it, no. Did he claim sole ownership of the Shakespeare plays? In fact, he did. And you're going to learn about how he said it and what he said. But his half-brother, another Tudor prince, the 17th Earl of Oxford, he wrote the quarto versions of the plays, and Francis, the half-brother, edited them for the 1623 folio. Okay, so let me go on, Andy. In his case, the heart of the discussion of Edwin Durning Lawrence, the heart of the discussion focuses on the play Love's Labour's Lost. Why particularly this play? Why did Bacon choose this play to insert the strongest clue in the whole canon to the fact that he claims ownership of the plays? Well, because if you're putting all of your labor of love into the project and the credit is going to a country bumpkin from Stratford named Will Shakespeare, then it's Love's Labour's Lost. So he inserts the strongest clue of all in that work so that Love's labor can be regained. And he can take credit for being the editor of the 1623 folio. And let me tell you a little story here, Andy. In Toronto, the Osler family still is strongly influential, especially in the legal field. They're basically Canada's royal family. They're very high up in the British peerage system. I'm not into this snobbery, aristocratic bloodline crap. I don't care, but I'm just bringing it up because Peter Osler, a very famous Canadian lawyer, has a copy of the 1623 folio. And my friend Peter viewed it and looked through it with silk gloves, which Peter Osler insisted he wear if he was going to have a look at the book. So he leafed through the book and he found all kinds of markings and signatures in the folio showing Bacon's hand in the 1623 folio. Okay, so the long word, bear with me, Honorificabilitudinitatibus, is found in Love's Labour's Lost near the beginning of Act 5, called Actus Cordus in the 1623 folio. The word honorificabilitudinitatibus appeared on the 27th line of page 136 of the 1623 folio edition. Okay?
Oh.
The word honorificabilitudinitatibus is a Latin hexagram, which I'm going to explain shortly. On lines 14 to 15 of page 136, there appears the phrase "Bome boon for boon Priscian, a little scratch 'twill serve." This line alludes to a pedantic grammarian named Priscian, though the name is spelled Pressian with an E. Prescian, in Love's Labour's Lost. Why refer to him at all, since his name has no significance to anything in the play, nor has it anything to do with the dramatic action. It rather refers solely and entirely to the phrase which is to be formed from the transposition of the 27 letters contained in the long word Honorificabilitudinitatibus. The revealed sentence forms a correct Latin hexameter. It is intended to prove without doubt that the Shakespeare plays are the property of... Now, Edwin Durning Lawrence said the property of their author, the property of their editor, and co-author. Sorry, Bacon cannot take sole credit for the Shakespeare works. No, he can't. Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, also is an author. They're co-authors of the Shakespeare works. In fact, the sonnet poems appear to have been given credit to the Earl of Oxford for that part of the work. For example, in the dedication page to the sonnets, it says, "To our ever Vere author from an ever Vere reader." Ever is a pun on the word Vere, as in Edward Vere. And he died. Now, the official date of the Earl of Oxford's death is 1604, the year after the Queen died, who died in 1603. Now, it was claimed that he died of the plague. Lie, 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 lie. Like most British history, it's a complete lie. So, what happened? King James staged his death so that he could send the Earl of Oxford into exile on the penal island of Mersey, which is just off the coast of Essex County. And to add insult to injury, from the island, where many people claim there is Shakespeare's cottage, he could see his childhood home within hailing distance of the island, Castle Hedingham, which is featured in the play Hamlet as the childhood home of Prince Hamlet, Elsinore Castle, I believe it's called. All right. All right, so the Latin hexagram that I was talking about is intended to prove without doubt that the Shakespeare plays are the property of their editor and co-author, Francis Bacon, who conceived the entire schema of the plays and with the probable assistance of his half-brother and fellow poet, Edward, shall I call him Tudor, or Edward de Vere. He's a changeling child of Queen Elizabeth I, as was Francis Bacon. They both were given to aristocratic families to be reared and raised as a ward of the court. Why? Well, the Queen had billed herself as the Virgin Queen and wanted to keep herself open for marriage for strategic political purposes in case some prince from the continent or some high-ranking official from the continent wished to marry her. If she was seen as an eligible bride, there could be some diplomatic leverage to be gained from that. She did marry the Earl of Leicester, but secretly in the country. And yes, it was a church wedding. So beneath the Elizabethan canon, most particularly the Shakespeare plays. Francis Bacon, who was in charge of editing most of the Shakespeare, but most of the Elizabethan canon, including the works of Ben Jonson, inserted a biliteral cipher code. And so what is a biliteral cipher code? Well, you can read the word as being part of the central text, or you could read the words as being embedded beneath as a concealed work, because the letters were based on a cipher code, a binary cipher code that had to do with the italicization of the letters, like letter L, for example, which could be italicized to slant this way to the left or slant this way to the right. And those subtle difference in the typography would allow for an embedded work to be concealed beneath the surface work. So you can read a running narrative embedded beneath the work, where, for example, Francis Bacon wrote his own concealed biography beneath the Shakespeare canon. And in the embedded biography, he did say, I am a legitimate son of the Queen, not an illegitimate son, because she was married in a Christian wedding to my father, the Earl of Leicester, before I was born. There you go. Right from the horse's mouth. Now, why did Francis Bacon take sole ownership of the plays? Well, for a start, the Earl of Oxford died in 1609, and on the sonnet dedication to the sonnet poems, Shakespeare's sonnets, it indicates that it was published in 1609. And it indicates on the dedication page that he's already dead, right? To an ever-living author for an ever-living reader, something like this, right? And it's ever, the word ever is a pun on his name, Edward de Vere. Okay, so you following this, Andy? It's a bit complicated.
A little bit complicated, but it's also you're doing it in a way that people can understand, because you're just running over about the joint authorships, how they related to each other. You're kind of doing it in a nutshell this time, rather than dragging it through 3 or 4 hours. It's them tutorials I don't understand, but this one is easier.
Okay, good. Okay. So the Latin hexagram that we were talking about comes from the long word Honorificabilitudinitatibus. It is intended to prove without doubt that the Shakespeares are the property of their editor and co-author, Francis Bacon, who conceived the entire schema of the plays, and with the assistance of his half-brother and fellow poet, Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, also known as Shakespeare. They both are. The Earl of Oxford has put his claim to the plays as well, because he put a initial on many of the sonnet poems. Okay, so there is little doubt that this particular play, Love's Labour's Lost, is actually Francis Bacon's work. I don't believe the quarto version of this play was written by Edward de Vere, although I would say most of the quarto versions of the Shakespeare plays were his original conception and his original work. But this one has Bacon written all over it. It's very esoteric, it's very scholarly as a play goes. It doesn't hold any entertainment value as far as I'm concerned, but Edward de Vere is just amazing with entertainment value, just amazing. I mean, come on, Hamlet, who couldn't be entertained by this great play? And he wrote the quarto version, no question about it. And Francis edited it. And in the editing process, he expanded the size of Hamlet by double the size for the 1623 folio. All right. When Bacon inserted the long word I hate this word, Honorificabilitudinitatibus, which is composed of 27 letters, he placed it on the 27th line of page 136 of the 1623 folio, where it appears as the 151st word printed in ordinary type. So the Latin hexagram reads, he, LUDI, F, Bacon, NATI, TUITI, ORBI. Translated into English, it means these plays, F. Bacon's offspring, are preserved for the world. So, did Bacon really mean that he was the sole author? I don't think he was taking sole credit, but he's saying they are his offspring, preserved for all posterity by him. While they're indisputably the offspring of he and his brother, and Bacon, being the editor, is also the co-author because he added significantly to the original quarto version with his edited version, where a lot of passages were inserted and added to what the Earl of Oxford had already penned. So like I said, Hamlet doubled in size by the time Francis was done with it. Now, think about the significance of the 27th line of page 136 of the 1623 folio and the 151st word on that page. When you do the numerology, it equals the numerological value of the letters in the Latin hexagram, which translated into English is these plays, F. Bacon's offspring, are preserved for the world. Okay, so it's a mathematical proof, goddammit. A mathematical proof that Francis Bacon takes credit for the Shakespeare plays. Will Shakespeare, go fuck yourself. You fucking liar, you cheat, you charlatan, go back to Stratford and shut the fuck up. I am sick of this bullshit, Andy. And yeah, I'm being a little coarse and vulgar to basically say up you to the Oxfordian, or sorry, the Oxford or Oxbridge snobs that have been touting that Will Shakespeare is the author for 400 years. It's tiresome, and their arrogance and the condescending way in which they talk to colonials like me is a little bit off-putting. So I say fuck them. Anyway. Bacon deliberately arranged the plays and the acts of the plays in the 1623 Shakespeare Folio with an express purpose. The purpose he executed was to have the long word honorificabilitudinitatibus on page 136 as the 151st word, falling on the 27th line, so that the interpretation should indicate the numbers 136 and 151, the aim being to create a mathematical proof that the word and the message was placed there by design, so its meaning could not be discounted or explained away by appeal to odd coincidences. The Latin hexagram and its meaning must have been constructed before Love's Labour's Lost first appeared, in 1598. Thus, when the plays were printed for the 1623 folio, the scenes and acts of the preceding plays and the printing of the columns had to be arranged with extraordinary care in order to ensure that the revealing page in question should commence with the first word of the revealing page in the original quarto of 1598, so that this page should form the 136th page of the Shakespeare Folio of 1623, in order that the long word honorificabilitudinitatibus should appear on page 136 as the 151st word of the 27th line. Proof positive, mathematical proof positive, that Francis Bacon had editorial oversight and complete editorial control over the 1623 folio. That clear, Andy?
Yeah. I'm still chuckling about the last thing.
Okay. So honorificabilitudinitatibus should appear with numerological significance, of course. And so what do you find when you add up the numerological value of all the letters in the long word? It equals 287. All right. So there is numerological significance to all of this. For instance, Bacon's own name is derived of B, which holds the value of 2, A holds the value of 1, C, numerological value 3, O, numerological value 14, N, numerological value 13. When we add all these numbers together, we arrive at 33. 33 is the highest degree in Freemasonry. Was Bacon a 33rd degree Freemason? Almost assuredly he was. And he was also the founder of, the Grand Master of the Rosicrucian Society. When we apply the numerological value of the letters forming the long word, the total comes to 287. All right. On page 136 of the 1623 folio, numbers are placed pointing to the fact that the long word honorificabilitudinitatibus is on the 27th line, which was deliberately placed, of course, because there are 27 letters in the word itself. There is another set of numbers on the other side of the page which reveals that counting from the first word, the long word is the 151st word on the page. How is it possible that the revealing sentence, he LUDI F Bacon NATI TUITI ORBI, tells us that the page is 136 and the long word is the 151st word appearing on that page? This can be explained simply. The numerological value of the initial letters and of the terminal letters of the revealed sentence arrive at the sum of 136 when added together, which is the actual page number. At the same time, the numerological value of all the other letters arrive at the sum 151, which is the position of the long word on that page, where it appears as the 151st word on page 136. So here's a Latin hexagram, Andy. I don't know. You can't see it. I wish you could.
If you had a digital copy, I could put it with the show.
Okay. I'll send, I think you have a copy. I think I sent you and Dawn a copy earlier today. So the initial letters of hu ludi f baconis nati tuiti orbi, the initial letters are H, L, F, B, and T, O. The numerological value of these initial letters forming the anagram is for H8, L11, F6, B2, N13, T19, O14, and so all of those add up to 73. The terminal letters are as follows: I, S, I. The numerological value of the terminal letters is I9, S18, I9, for a total of 63. When we add the two sums, 73 and 63, it equals 136. Okay. The intermediate letters are as follows: UD, Aconi, at, UIT, RB. Let's place them in order for order's sake. UD, ACON, IAT, UIT, RB. U holds the value of 20. D, numerological value 4. A, 1. C, 3. O, 14. N, 13. I, 9. A, 1. T, 19. U, 20. I, 9. T, 19. R, 17. B, 2. Total value 151. Didn't I say that long word honorificabilitudinitatibus appeared as the 151st word on that page, Annie?
Very interesting. I like the way the numbers add up as well.
Yeah. Thus, in the revealed sentence, the sum of the numerological values of the initial letters when added to the sum of the numerological value of the terminal letters arrives at the sum total of 136. The page number, the exact page number on which the revealed Latin hexagram is located. He LUDI F Bacon NATI TUITI ORBI. Meanwhile, the sum of the intermediate letters in the revealed sentence amounts to 151, which gives the word count position of the long word Honorificabilitudinitatibus on page 136 as the 151st word. These two sums, 136 and 151, when added together, arrive at the sum total of 287, which is the sum of the numerological value of all the letters in the long word Honorificabilitudinitatibus, which comes to a total of 287. In addition, there is a joke on page 136 of the Shakespeare Folio that reveals the truth in a more definitive form on line 33, which has the numerical value of Bacon's name. The words, "What is ab?" spelled backward with the horn on his head. And the answer to the riddle, bacon. And so the numerological value of Bacon's name, when you add it up, equals 33. The answer.
About 1 minute to go, Tim.
Oh, really? Okay. You got a final word there, my good man?
Yes, we should make it a criminal offence for historians, whether they're Oxford or Cambridge, whether they're Stratford or Scotland, to change history. You know, why can't we just have history as it really is or was? You know, it's not right, is it? I mean, because basically what it is in my eyes is somebody's made up a lie. People have believed it for a long time. Somebody comes along and uncovers the lie, and then people still believe the lie. It doesn't make no sense to me in any situation, not just in Shakespeare or authorships.
I know it's incredible, but, part of the blame must be laid at the feet of Francis Bacon because he was the head of Her Majesty.
You're listening to Freedom Talk Radio with your host Andy Peacher, live from the UK. Email us freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com or visit us at freedomtalkradioonline.com.